What's going on, everybody? I'm going to start assembling the brown Strat now. Couple things I didn't really mention previous in the last video. I did end up going with the Black Invader. And a lot of the pictures that show the guitar, it had a white pickup in it, but later on it ended up going to a black pickup, which is kind of like the opposite of what the teal green Strat ended up happening with. It had a black pickup originally, and then it went to a white pickup. And honestly, it could be, the pickups were direct swaps. Who knows? But I don't know. I like the black version in this. I think it just looks a little cooler. So first thing I'm going to be doing is putting the bridge on. But what you need to do is feed a ground wire through there. So this is a stranded wire. So it's got, these fine strands on here, and you want to fan them out. You don't want to have like a solid wire because it just gives a better connection when you have more points of contact. So you're going to fan it out a little bit just like this. And you don't want any of the pieces to really be laying on top of each other. You just kind of want it to be nicely spread out there. And then you're going to just lay this bridge over on top of it. Line up the holes, make sure everything's good. And you just want to give a little extra slack on this. I don't know if I gave enough. I think I did. But that's eventually going to connect to the back of the pot as just an extra ground. So I got my mounting screws here. And this is a simple enough job here. The way that Warmoth will route the bodies exactly for the bridge that you want, it really makes the process very easy. And I typically go for this bridge, which is the Fender American hard mount or flat mount. It's what Tom uses on all of his hardtail bodies. Some of the earlier Strats do have the 2-point tremolo, kind of like this, but this is obviously the hardtail version of it. So. So you could have left the saddles on and just basically moved them as far out while still being on the screw as possible, but it does make kind of a pain to do that. So I just took them off this time just for the sake of the video. These little springs will be the absolute death of me though. Already dropped one of them. And we're just going to put these saddles back on, just kind of rough estimate right now. I mean, there's no reason to try to figure out exactly how far to actually set these for now, because there's no way to really intonate it without the neck and everything else being on. Apparently there's fireworks outside. Come on now. There we go. Sometimes the threading can be a little annoying to deal with. mostly because of the spring itself, just because it gets stuck. I don't know what my neighbor's celebrating. These saddles are all the same, so you don't have to worry about, you know, putting the wrong one on the wrong spot. They're all universal on these. And I really like this bridge. I mean, it looks great, but it's super comfortable on your hand. When you're doing like palm muting and stuff like that, it's super comfortable. You're not going to end up, you know, kind of cutting your hand on, you know, any protruding screws or anything like that, which I definitely like. So I can pull on this this ground wire here, and it's, you know, it's snug in place. You know, this is definitely tight down to the body. And it'll be nice and grounded once I put it to the pot there. Nextly, I guess, will be the string ferrules, which is probably my least favorite part of any of these builds, but this shouldn't be too bad. Another thing I forgot to mention, the way that I had been painting this body, I had screwed this wooden stick that I had just bought from the store. Jeez. And what happens because of this, it leaves some extra room in between the you know, the curves of the neck pocket here and the stick. So that extra finish that had been sprayed in there had to be sanded off. So hopefully this is good enough. When I test fitted the neck the other night, it was actually a little snug. So hopefully that's a bit better. So what I'm gonna want to do here is, frankly, I should. I should sand in here just a small amount, just to get a little bit of that extra finish off the inside. And I do have just some quick files here. So I just have like a round file, which I've used on some other guitars. So this will just help kind of scrape away any little extra. That'll just help the ferrules go in a little bit easier. Now you can use like a dowel or something with a little bit of sandpaper attached to it. You know, whatever can get you into this this hole here. Doesn't seem like much, but every little bit helps with this here. There's definitely different ways of doing the string ferrules. You could do it with a drill press. You could do it with a soldering iron and kind of just sit the ferrule, you know, over the hole and just lightly press it in there. That way is a bit more tricky, and if you get the ferrule too hot, it could actually melt the lacquer a little bit, which can look a bit ugly. Sometimes you can just push it in with like a screwdriver or something, depending on how tight that ends up being. So let me just try and slide this one in here with just a screwdriver I have and see what happens. No, that's not going to work. You could also use a hammer, but that's, you know, a bit trickier. You really don't want to miss with the hammer, obviously. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my soldering iron set up here. Just got a little bit of water just to wet my sponge here. So that's going to heat up. It'll take about a minute, and I'm just going to, you know, work at this a little bit more just to get a little bit more of that finish off. Now what I'll end up doing is just very lightly putting the soldering iron into the ferrule. You can see it, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's got a very small hole that actually, you know, this kind of slots right into, and it's very easy for the soldering iron to get stuck in there, you know, ever so slightly, which could cause, you know, the whole thing to just start burning, which you obviously don't want to do. But yeah, I've done this a few times. Hopefully I don't mess anything up. I'm going to put down some painter's tape just in case. Just in the area. The good thing about this type of ferrule is it actually has a lip on it. There's some that you can get that don't have a lip, so you have to be very careful how far you push it into the body, because if you go too far, it looks really weird and it's sunken in. You obviously don't want that, but this you just push as far as it'll go and you'll be all set. Alright, so this is pretty hot. Let's see what happens. Alright, there you go. That didn't get too hot, which is good, but it was just enough to kind of loosen up the finish right around it. And you do have to give it a bit of muscle to really push it in there, especially before it gets too hot. You don't want this just sitting in there for a long time, because you could really end up with a mess. And if this gets really hot and you try to pull it out and then, you know, it drops on, you know, a different part of the guitar, it could, you know, leave a nice little gash on there, so you don't want that either. So let's try and do the second one here. And also be very careful because this will be very, very hot. And I always twist just a little bit as I'm pulling it out of there. That's what she said. Just to make sure that the soldering iron loosens from the ferrule, just so it's not, you know, trying to take it with it as I'm backing out. That would not be good. This is going pretty good. I did it slightly differently with my Fiesta Red Strat. I tried doing it with a hammer, and I was foolish, and I just clearly wasn't paying attention. I had a little piece of wood over it that I was using as like a, I don't know, like a cushion almost, just to kind of spread the, you know, the hitting of the hammer, and I just wasn't paying attention. I just clocked the back of the body, left a nice little indent in there, so I was pretty upset about that. Definitely don't want to do something like that again. If you have a variable heat, like a variable heat setting on your soldering iron, I would definitely recommend putting it on probably the lowest one that'll go. This unfortunately only has one temperature, and it does get a little hotter than I'd like it to for this, but you know, we do what we can do. Last one. There you go. Nothing too bad. There's a very, very slight marking right around the edges of the ferrules. I mean, you'd never notice unless you were like looking really close at it, just because it had gotten so hot. So ideally, the best way to do this is with a drill press. Obviously not everybody has a drill press, but that really is the best way to go. I know StewMac carries like a very specific bit or whatever you call it that will fit perfectly into these and push them in, if that's something you're considering. So that is going to do it for this video. Nextly, I'll probably end up, you know, doing just a couple more little things like I'll do the wiring for the pick guard and the pickup. I'll screw the strap buttons on, and then after that I'll start working on the neck, because I'll have to do the water slide decal, which is very, very easy, and then I'll have to put the tuners on, and after that it's just about putting the neck and the body together and giving it a setup and intonating it and all that. So nothing too crazy. And also be careful touching these, you know, for more than a brief second, because these will stay hot for quite a while. So all right, I'll see you next time.